Welcome back to me reading Transported, a Wings of Fire story. This time it's chapter 32. As usual, if this is your first time watching this little series, I recommend you to watch the previous chapters or read them yourself. Now let's begin. This chapter's name is An Interesting Escape. The Trip of The Trip of Dragons. Oh boy. We love typos, they make us laugh. The Trip of Dragons ran through the narrow tunnel of the staircase and back up to the Queen's bedroom. Upon climbing out of the hole, Daniel extinguished the torch and placed it back in its found place on the wall. Once they were all out, Winter pressed something towards the base of the bed, and before Daniel knew it, the bed was already back in its original position, like nothing ever happened. All right, well, how do we get out of here? Star asked. We could try the same way we came in, Daniel offered, but Winter shook his head as he looked outside at the late afternoon sun. No, at this time of day, it would most likely be guarded. I've memorized the watch party patterns. We need another way out. Just then, a loud whoosh was ears. Okay. Was ears by the side of the window. Get down! Winter cried. They all immediately fell to the bedroom floor, just beneath the window, as the shadows of larger dragons sneaked into the room. See, I told you, there's nothing in the bedroom. Now let's go. We need to meet with the queen, said one of the voices. It was a deep male one, and he had a rough sort of growl to the way he spoke. You know, she's not like Glacier. She'll punish us for being late. The other voice gave out the sort of disappointed sigh. Very well. I just thought I saw some movement inside. Either way, let's go. Her Majesty called all the guards inside the castle for some reason. Daniel, Star, and Winter stayed silent, not daring to move a muscle in case by any chance they were spotted. Then all would truly go to hell. Soon, as Daniel heard the beating of the dragons move away from the window, he made the daring move. Peeking his head over the base of the window, he saw where the two ice wings were gliding off to. The sun was still high up in the sky, but would soon begin its descent in probably less than a few hours' time. As Daniel squinted his eyes to ignore the sun's bright glare, he spotted the great ice cliff in the distance. He ducked back down behind the cover of the icy window. All right, well, if the queen is at the great ice cliff at the moment, and she called almost all the guards, then strictly speaking, we should be able to walk through the palace with ease, Daniel said. I'm not so sure about that, Star interjected. Wouldn't there be workers and other royal family members present? Well, either way, Daniel got off the floor and wandered over to the dark wood door. We need to get out of here. And the more we wait around, the sooner everyone is going to come back. So I prefer to not waste any more time discussing this. Thank you. The others couldn't argue against his points, so they all rushed out of the door, not bothering to make sure the coast was clear. Luckily, there was nobody around except for them and the beady eyes of the Icewing portraits. Okay, Winter, you know the layout of this place. See if you can get us out of here, Daniel whispered. Winter looked at him, but didn't say anything. He took the lead, and Daniel led him as he guided him and Star through the palace. He took turn after turn down the surprisingly warm, frozen corridors. He continued further until he suddenly stopped. Yo, is something wrong? Daniel asked. Winter turned to meet him. Someone's around the corner, he concluded. Who? An Icewing? Star asked, to which Daniel and Winter both looked at her. Well, no shit, it's an Icewing. We're in the Ice Kingdom, Winter said, to which Star replied, You don't know that. For all we know, some random Sandwing could be there. Why would a Sandwing be in the palace, let alone the kingdom? Daniel said before the trio peeked the corner. Daniel's and Winter's faces fell to shock and disbelief, while Star only beamed. There, in the center of the ice blue corridor, lied the unmistakable scales of a pale yellow Sandwing. I think you guys owe me an apology, Star smirked. Oh, shush you, Daniel said. Less than 1% chance. Star laughed quietly, though though she then said on a more serious note, "Okay, but what in the moons is a sandwing doing in the palace? I have no idea, but they definitely shouldn't be there. Be here." Winter growled. "I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but it's not like we're supposed to be here either," Daniel pointed out. "I say we just forget about the random sandwing and focus on getting out of this place." Winter, however, was too busy studying the sandwing to answer him. Daniel turned his attention back to the dragon, who appeared to be in deep thought, not paying attention to their surroundings. Daniel had to admit they did look a little familiar. Then he saw it. "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." He hadn't noticed it, but along one of the dragon's necks was a dark dragon skull tattoo. "Guys, we need to go," Daniel said, fear making its way into his voice. "What? Why? Who is that?" Star asked, and Winter turned to listen for once. "That tattoo. It's one of Vulture's minions," Daniel spoke with a shudder. "You mean the ones who were after the map?" Winter asked with panic. Daniel nodded. "They must have followed us, and no doubt are looking for us as we speak." So what are we standing around for? Let's go!" Star shouted quietly. "But where?" "That's the only way out without going through the supposedly guarded balcony we came in from," Daniel shouted as he started to panic, though he was interrupted by Winter. "No, there's another way." He ran back to the wall. He ran back behind the wall and into another door opposite to the Queen's bedroom. Daniel and Star followed him without question, considering he was the only own. Oh boy, we love typos to make us laugh. He was the only own who knew she layout to this place. Oh boy, that's a double there. As they entered the room, it only took a matter of moments for Daniel to notice they were in the castle kitchen. Winter sped past the bundles of neatly organized plates and cutlery as he headed for the corner of the room. A delicious smell soon filled Daniel's nostrils as he walked through the kitchen itself. That smells really good. Must be the Queen's dinner for tonight." Despite how tempting the smell was and how badly he wanted to follow it to the source, Daniel continued to follow Winter until they reached the corner of the room. "All right. Well, I have good news and I have bad news," Winter said. "What do you mean good news and bad news? We don't have time for this," Daniel remarked. "You said there was another way out of here. Where is it?" Winter made a face before he lifted a clear, icy trapdoor-like lid from the wall. Immediately came a terrible stench, which made Daniel sick. "Oh, wow, that is strong." He gagged a little. "What is that?" Daniel asked as he covered his nose with a talon. "It's the kitchen's trash chute. It leads out to the bottom of the castle, where the rubbish is collected and disposed of by lower-ranked dragons." Daniel looked down into the chute. It reeked of rotten meat and bones. Old crusty bloodstains could be seen on the icy walls of the chute. It was also extremely dark, and he couldn't see the bottom of it. "Please tell me you're joking," Daniel said as Winter looked at him in the eyes. "Does it look like I'm joking?" Winter said as he held the lid open. "You said you wanted a way out. I gave you one." Daniel turned to Star, who had the same face of uncertainty and disgust. "Well, if it's really our only way out..." "No. How about we go back and fight Vulture's goon? It's 3-on-1. We can't lose," Daniel offered. "Oh yeah, 3 dragonettes versus a grown sandwing assassin. What an amazing idea. Honestly, do you think things through at all?" Winter remarked. "If we fight them, we'll most likely lose, first off. And if by some miracle we do end up winning, 2 of us would probably be dead and the last one severely injured, which would make getting out of here impossible." Winter sighed as he put a talon to his forehead. "In simpler words, if we fight them, none of us will get out of here alive. So I'd take my chances with a trash chute if I was you." "But what if we die from falling?" "It's not like there's enough room in there to fly," Star interjected. "Yeah, that's true. If we take this, we might just die from falling. It's not like we can see the bottom." Winter stayed silent for a moment before he answered. "These are claws. If you dig them into the ice, there's no way you fall." "But my claws aren't sharp enough for that. I'll just end up scratching the ice before falling to my death," Daniel pointed out. But Winter had enough. Look, do you want to get out of here or not? If so, then just jump already. Winter bellowed and immediately covered his mouth. Nice one. Now we're screwed. Now we're really screwed, Star said. Talon steps could be heard approaching the door, and this is when Winter bailed. I'm out, Hurricane. You either get your head together or die. Your choice. And with that, he leaped into the chute without another word. Star closely followed him and whispered an, I'm sorry, before she also leaping into the gap. Now Daniel was all alone in the kitchen. Well, great. This ain't good at all. Daniel paced the room silently as the noise of the approaching dragon grew closer. The smell was stronger than ever, and it nearly made Daniel want to take his chances with the assassin. But he managed. He shifted uncomfortably before he muttered to himself, Screw it. With some quick thinking, he took out the gatekeeper's gold and blue-colored balisong from his bag before he leaped into the trash chute. Digging the blade into the ice, it made an ear-bleeding screech sound, but it did its job, and managing to keep him from free-falling into the rotting dark abyss to his potential death. As Daniel glided down into the darkness, he shot a soft plume of fire next to him. The fire lit a light up the small claustrophobic area, and he was able to look down to see the yellow and blue figures of Star and Winter. The fire only gave light for a little while, and Daniel was shoved into the darkness again, though it didn't matter, as soon light came from the bottom of the chute. Unexpectedly, the chute tilted to the side. The wall Daniel was digging the blade into tilted upwards, which caused it to slip out and make him fall backwards on the sliding chute. Eventually, he slid out of the chute and into a small, but disgusting, pile of old bones. Winter and Star both looked at him as they stood next to the pile. Well, that was extremely uncomfortable, Star said. You mean absolutely disgusting, Daniel retorted as he got out of the pile. A few of the red, blood-stained bones stuck to his scales, and he had to take them off manually. Well, I'll admit, it wasn't ideal, but at least we're out of the palace, Winter said optimistically for once. Yeah, it's smelling like we haven't washed ourselves in 10 years, Daniel inputted as he waddled over uncomfortably to a nearby body of water. The water was well below freezing, and Daniel probably wouldn't be able to feel his limbs or any of his body afterwards. But if it could get rid of the awful smell the rotten bones were giving off, he was all for it. Daniel put away the balisong, took off his bag, and leaped into the water. A freezing sensation soon covered his scales as the below-zero waters consumed his entire dragon body. A slight headache began to form from this, and despite how much he wanted the leave. I want to have the leave too. He didn't. He swam around for a little while, observing his surroundings. To his surprise, it appeared dragons were able to withstand the salt of the ocean water in their eyes, but either way, he needed some air. Daniel swam up to the surface quietly. However, he still held his breath, even after surfacing, when he looked towards his friends. Winter and Star were both staring and appeared to be talking to a much larger Icewing. They had been caught. He couldn't make out exactly what they were saying, but he assumed it wasn't good. Slowly, ignoring the freezing pain in his body was in, Daniel got out of the water and onto dry land again. He had to really concentrate on not falling, as that would immediately give away his position to the larger Icewing. The ice was also much harder to fully walk on, since his talons were wet, making it more slippery than it already was. Step by step, Daniel made his way to where his dropped bag was. All right, just take your time, Daniel. Whatever you do, don't slip. Eventually, he managed to reach the bag, and without thinking, he took out the first thing he saw, the balisong. He flipped it open and began to approach the Icewing quietly. He looked up towards the others. Winter was still distracting the older Icewing when he noticed Daniel approaching. Winter's eyes went wide as he saw what Daniel was up to. He tried to shake his head to tell Daniel to not go through with it, but it was too late. The Icewing whipped around, and their eyes went wide as Daniel quickly lunged forward and tackled the Icewing to the ground. In a matter of moments, Daniel clamped the Icewing's mouth shut, or snout shut and pressed the blade against its throat. Not enough to cut the scales of the dragon, but hard enough so they knew not to try something. Hurricane! What are you doing? Winter bellowed. Daniel looked up at him and Star. I'm keeping him from telling everyone about us. What does it look like? Get off of him! Winter yelled dangerously. Now Daniel was confused and shot Winter a puzzled look. But he did as he said. Slowly, he took the knife off the Icewing's throat. The Icewing's eyes were of pure terror and trauma. As Daniel unclamped the dragon's snout slowly, he prepared to dodge in case they decided to blast frost breath on him. But they never did. Instead, they stood up, just rising up and down rapidly as they looked into Daniel's deadly blue eyes. They retreated to Winter's side as they eyed him with pure terror. Hurricane, Winter said. Daniel turned to meet him as the older Icewing stood beside him. Meet my brother, Hailstorm. And that is the end of the chapter, besides the author's note at the very bottom. Hello, beautiful people. Sorry this chapter wasn't that exciting, but I wanted to get this out before the end of the weekend. The next chapter will definitely be a lot more interesting and exciting, so stay tuned. But until then, peace. So they escaped down a chute. I don't really have that much to say about this chapter. It's pretty short to me. See you next time.